or the overcall. Zeph.
Yeah.
Now, and then so then I want my.
So today we'll be talking about, there's been a lot of disasters going on around the world, and essentially really how to prepare for that financially, even if you can't predict it, because at the end of the day, none of us can predict the financial storm. I mean, a weather storm like what
That's
we
true.
see.
That's very true. My uncle, you too.
All right, thank you all for tuning in to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a licensed certified public accountant in the state of Illinois. I'm the owner and practitioner of my firm, Badu Tax Services, and we specialize in tax preparation, tax planning, and tax representation for individuals and businesses. So today's topic is how to prepare for a financial storm. All the different storms that we've seen out, all the earthquakes and all the crazy things that are going on in the world, is how to be actually financially prepared for that. So you can't be fully prepared because you never predicted something like that happening, but you could put yourself in a better financial position in order to prepare for it when it does happen, or if it does happen. But before we do that, I would like to kick it off with a market report. This report is as of September 15th, 2017. And so stocks followed the prior week's plunge by surging to record highs last week. The Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ reached new all-time highs during the week. And then also each of the indexes essentially posted gains. And then the small caps of the Russell 2000 led the way, gaining over 2.3%. Followed by the Dow Jones, S&P 500, NASDAQ, and the Global Dow. For the year, NASDAQ still remains in the lead as it closes in on 20% return, or 20% gain. And then the price of crude oil went up from $49.56 per barrel to $49.83. Part of the reason is due to all of the hurricanes and floods and things like that going on, is that oil prices tend to rise, as sad as it sounds. And then also the price of gold actually went down from $13.51 to $13.2350 per ounce. And so overall, the market has still done really well this year. Dow Jones is up 12.68%. NASDAQ is up almost 20%, 19.79%. S&P 500 is up 11.68%. Russell 2000 is up 5.5%. Global Dow is up 14.33%. And then basically interest rates right now, or the benchmark interest rates, which is what the Federal Reserve uses as essentially the base rate that banks can lend to each other, is 1% to 1.25%. And interest rates are expected to be going up. Interest rates are expected to be going up by the end of this year. And so overall, and then also in other news, Bitcoin has made a rise again. So it's essentially going up a little bit right now. It's recovering. It took a hit last week, but now it's actually recovering itself. And Bitcoin is almost at $4,000. Last I checked, it's almost at $4,000 per unit or per share. So how to prepare for a financial storm when your back is against the wall, when you might, let's say for example, you lose your job, you go through something like a tornado, an earthquake, a flood, anything that's a disaster in your life, anything that requires you to tap into your savings account, or anything that's, these are huge events. These aren't just small, quick rain here and there. These are floods that are actually tearing apart people's homes. So how do you actually prepare financially for something like that? So through all the hurricanes and other disasters, many people will be left homeless, unfortunately. And virtually everything that they have will be wiped out. And although a disaster cannot be predicted, nobody in the world can really predict a disaster happening. We can all put ourselves in a better position in case one does happen, especially financially. So the average American, unfortunately, has virtually nothing saved for a rainy day, or in other words, saved in a bank and just a reserve fund of some sort. Have average American has nothing. And so literally if they lose their paycheck next month, they lose everything. Or they lose most of it. They would have to stop paying certain bills. They might have to get, let's say they've lost their job, they've gone 2 months without paying bills, they might end up in foreclosure. Just different things like that. So that's what I mean by most Americans don't have anything saved in the bank, or anything that's saved for a rainy day. And so essentially this sets you up for what's known as financial disaster. So you have earthquakes, tornadoes, you have hurricanes and things like that. But a financial disaster is, it's almost close. I would say it's pretty close to being in an actual disaster, because to be in financial disaster, to be not able to pay off your mortgage, to be on the verge of foreclosure, to be on the verge of repossession, to be on the verge of any of these things, that can be really heartbreaking. If you're losing your prized possessions, you can't think straight. If you do, let's say you do still have a job, you might not be able to focus. It's just a disaster. Your mind is just all over the place, and you're not necessarily prepared with all that is going on. And so essentially you can put yourself in a better position in case a storm is heading your way. So I'll go through basically 3 different ways where you can actually prepare for a financial storm. And that, for one, you can ensure that you have a solid reserve fund. And so one of the biggest misconceptions is that your reserve fund has to be in a bank, which is not true. So many experts recommend that you save up to 6 months of your monthly expenses. So the way to calculate this, assuming you have a budget, take everything in that expense category, multiply it by 6, and that's how much you should have in what's known as a reserve fund. Now, this does not have to be money in the bank, although it can be. I would say the majority of your reserve fund, or a pretty significant portion of it, should be in a bank, because that way you have easy access to it. Nowadays you can quick pay somebody within a few seconds. You can pay your bills via auto pay and things like that. So it's a very convenient way to make sure that you have money just in case there is a financial storm, or you're about to go through a financial storm. And keep in mind that a real storm can lead to a financial storm, and often does lead to a financial storm. And so this reserve fund is 6 months of savings. Some people do 3 months. I actually do recommend that you go up to 6 months of reserves, which is where I personally am comfortable being at that 6 month mark, especially being an entrepreneur, being somebody who doesn't have consistent income. Although I do have a few investments that yield consistent income, in general my income fluctuates each and every month. There's no 2 months that you'll see the same income. And so it can be in a form of available credit on a credit card. This is something I use personally a lot, is that a lot of my credit cards actually have space on them, or they have available credit. And so nowadays it's so easy to pay things with a credit card. Almost everybody accepts credit cards. So let's say you need to pay a bill, you can easily swipe the card, and then boom, there goes your reserve fund right there. You can take out cash advances, which I don't recommend because the interest rates can be pretty high. But if you're going through a tornado, if you're going through a storm, you might not have an option, or you might have no choice then to go to an ATM, pull out the money from the card, and then hopefully replenish it within a few weeks or a few months or so. Also, you can get very creative. You have PayPal, you have Square, and different apps like that you could convert available credit into cash. So you just have to be creative when it comes to that side. And you can easily, nowadays PayPal, you can get paid within 30 minutes, which is more than enough time for you to actually be prepared for a financial storm. So I would say, if you don't have a credit card, or if you don't have a line of credit, you should have it, or you should have at least one card that has a pretty decent available credit, just so when a financial storm does come, you can be able to use it. And so I do recommend, I wouldn't say go out and go crazy and just open a 1,000 or so or 50 credit cards, but just 1 or 2, maybe 3 or so, just so you're prepared for that rainy day. And keep in mind, this can qualify for that reserve fund, and it's recommended that you have 6 months. So if you spend $1,000 a month, you should have $6,000 that are in reserve in some sort. They can be $6,000 on a credit card as available credit. Or this is what I would recommend. I would probably split it. Maybe let's do 50-50. $3,000 is in your savings, pure savings, and then $3,000 is in available credit. And so that gives you a nice mix or a nice reserve fund that you can have. That. Now keep in mind, just because they're open lines of credit doesn't mean you have to use them. Just because they're available doesn't mean you necessarily have to use them. Although I do recommend, if you have a 0% interest rate credit card and you're a savvy, you must be savvy. You have to be a savvy investor, a savvy person. You can actually take advantage and invest that money that they give you, or you can do balance transfers. Maybe you have you have a credit card with a pretty high interest rate. You can just transfer that balance to the 0% card. Nowadays, they can go up to, say, 24 months. So you can take advantage of that, and now the card with the interest is now your reserve fund. And then you also have other lines of credit, so it doesn't have to be a credit card. It could be a home equity line of credit, in a first position, second position, all the fancy things out there. You can talk to a bank as far as how that works in that instance. So these are just a few options. It can also be in very, very, and I mean very safe investments, such as short-term treasuries. Nowadays you have treasuries that last a few weeks, a few months. So I would say you should take advantage of those things as well. Just be sure that it's something that you can easily tap into. It's money that if you needed it tomorrow, you can absolutely go out and go get it. And I would recommend that you keep a large portion of it in something that's very liquid, like a savings account or like an available credit on a credit card, which you can easily access right on the spot. And then, so if you don't have 6 months in reserves, let's say you do have 5 months, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have 4 months, also pretty fine. You can at least last the next 4 months without having to go into financial distress or financial disaster. If you have 3 months, that's when you might say, okay, I need to really bump this thing up a little bit. But also, if you have, let's say you have no months, you have 0 months right now. As we're speaking, you have $0 basically in reserves. So whatever you make, just set aside a percentage. Set up an account. Anytime you get paid in a paycheck, let's say you do 10% towards that account, and only that account. It's an account that you probably don't even think exists because you don't ever touch it. So money comes in the form of your paycheck or in the form of a check. It goes directly into that account. So I would say set aside a certain percentage, 10% a check. I would say according to the Bible at least, you're supposed to do 10% of your tithes and things like that. You can also apply that same principle here, where every paycheck you get, you're setting aside 10% to your reserve fund. Prepare for that financial storm or that financial disaster. And so also try to apply, like I was saying before, try to apply for some lines of credit or some credit cards and things like that. There's nothing wrong with having a credit card, unless, of course, you don't know how to use it. It's better to have it than to not have it when you need it. I would much rather have something when I need it than to not have it when I actually need it. And so for me, with my credit cards, some of them are actually stashed away. They're like stored in a secure lockbox. They're not even with me, but I know exactly where they are, and I can easily tap into it just by opening the lockbox. So some of my credit cards I literally don't even use to prepare for financial disasters. I would say that me personally, I don't like to keep money in a bank. I actually always keep about 1 month of reserves in the bank, and then the other months are in the form of available credit, very safe investments, just pretty things that they're actually gaining me something. I just hate losing. I hate losing money, essentially. And for me to keep my money or majority of my money in a savings account, to me, I'm ultimately losing money. But it is good to have. You need to have some money in the bank, though. For me, I'm pretty comfortable with the 1 month. because I have very safe investments. You know, for example, some of my stock portfolios, I own stocks in General Electric, AT&T, Apple, Microsoft. These are companies that are not going anywhere. They've risen over time and things like that. They pay dividends each and every month. I mean, not each and every month, but each and every quarter. Some of my stocks pay dividends each and every month. And so I'm very comfortable being 1 month in a bank and the other 5 months in reserves. Because even if I lost my stock fund, I have my available credit elsewhere. As a matter of fact, I don't even include my 6 months as part of that stock fund that I mentioned. That stock fund is just a separate account that I pay attention to it from time to time, but it's really an investment. It's a pure investment account that I don't treat as a saving or as a fund, sort of, as a reserve fund. So I would say it's good. It's always good to have lines of credit and credit cards, because it's better to have it when you need it than to not have it when you need it. And so that's the first step. And this is probably the biggest step to preparing. Actually, this is the second biggest step to preparing for our financial storm. Now let's go into a real storm. Well, let's go into, it still has to do with financial storm, but this is more so on a real storm side. So you want to protect your assets. You know, that beautiful car that you have sitting outside, there's a lot of things that can happen right now to that car. And so you might want to protect it. And so a way we protect assets is through insurance. Insurance is one of the easiest ways to protect your assets. And what you want to make sure is that all your assets, when you look at all your assets, except your investments, of course. I mean, some investments are protected by the SIP, SIPC, they call them. Most, if not all, your investments are protected up to $500,000 per financial institution. And so you're protected in that sense. Even your investments are actually protected in case the financial institution goes bankrupt or something. Let's say a small bank or even a JP Morgan Chase went bankrupt. Your investments are protected up to $500,000, and your savings or your checking account or anything that's federally FDIC protected is protected up to $250,000 per account, essentially. And so insurance is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to actually protect your assets. And so ensure that you do have the proper amount of coverage. So review your coverage levels to make sure that you'll be able to receive adequate compensation in the event an asset gets destroyed or significantly or severely damaged. So the different insurance types you have auto insurance, home insurance, life insurance, disability insurance. You have all these different types of insurance policies. So I do recommend that you look at, and remember, you are your biggest asset as well, so you should be protecting yourself too. So you should have life insurance. I would say that most people have car insurance, where you're actually required to have car insurance in the state of Illinois. But you should also probably protect your life as well, your most valuable asset. And so just make sure that you look at all your assets, all your different assets, and ensure that they are protected. Your car, your home, your life. You can protect your life really via life insurance and disability insurance. And for business owners, they have a bunch of crazy insurance types out there, but I won't get into that. But it's also great to have an umbrella policy that covers all your assets combined, where they have a certain coverage level, let's say $1 million or $4 million or something like that. That umbrella policy acts as a backup policy to protect all your assets in case your primary policy can't protect you. You at least have an umbrella policy that protects everything that the insurance company won't cover. And if you have a car, you should also have gap insurance. So if your car gets destroyed in a flood or a tornado or something, and you have a loan on it, let's say it's a brand new car, as soon as you step on the gas pedal, that car is gone, the value's gone by 25%. So it's probably smart to have some sort of gap insurance where whatever the value of the loan is, or whatever the loan, let's say whatever the loan amount is, and whatever the value of your car is, if there's a difference, then you have insurance to cover that difference. because oftentimes when people get into an accident, their car gets totaled, their value doesn't equal the loan amount, so they end up coming out of pocket. So you should probably get some gap insurance in order to cover that difference. And these are some of the ways that we prepare for financial storms. Because remember, the average American doesn't even have money saved in a bank. And so having protection or having insurance is very critical. It's always better to be safe than sorry. And then, also be sure that you buy separate coverage for hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, and other disasters, which typically aren't included as part of your standard policies. So I encourage you all either tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, next week, sometime in the future, in the near future, look at your different coverage levels and make sure that you're covered in certain, let's say for example, in Chicago, you probably won't experience a hurricane. I mean, I haven't witnessed a hurricane, God forbid, I don't want to see a hurricane. But essentially, I have not seen a hurricane in Chicago. So I probably don't need hurricane insurance. But if you live in Florida, or if you live in any tropical island or anything like that where there's a ton of water, you live on a lakefront or something like that, you might want to get some hurricane insurance, flood insurance. If you live in an area where, let's say, there's not level ground or anything, maybe some earthquake insurance might help out as well. I mean, earthquakes don't happen too often, but hey, remember, our goal with insurance is to cover ourselves when it does happen. You never want to get insurance after it happens because you won't be covered. Insurance is one of those things where it's better to have it and then something happens than to not have it and then something happens. So although we're paying our monthly premiums, although we're paying our, we hate we hate writing checks, we hate paying direct deposit to these insurance companies. Hey, when a disaster comes, you're going to be thanking yourself for making that decision to actually get insurance. I mean, I would say that for some people who get into a car accident, God forbid, you get into a car accident and you do have insurance, at least you have some comfort. For one, not only is it illegal to not have insurance, car insurance at least, you have that comfort, that peace of mind that, okay, assuming you have comprehensive insurance, even if the accident is really bad or anything like that, they say you can at least you have that peace of mind that your insurance is going to cover it, hopefully. I mean, I would say, I own a car rental company, and a few of my cars have gotten into accidents from different renters and things like that. And luckily, the insurance has always covered it. I haven't really had an issue other than with deductibles and things like that. All my cars essentially are covered. Anytime there's an accident, the renter has their own insurance. So my cars are covered. I'm good on that end. That's peace of mind. I can go to sleep better at night knowing that if a storm, a financial storm, an accident happens, God forbid, but if it does happen, then I know that I'm protected. And I also have insurance, my own insurance on the cars, just in case their insurance doesn't cover it. Even though my insurance probably wouldn't, it's good to have it just in case, because you never know. And that's the key with these disasters, with these storms. People didn't know there was a storm coming. I mean, some people tried to get out of the country, some people tried to get out of Florida and different things like that. But in reality is, you never know. You really never know when these things are happening. What if you have the home right there? I mean, are you gonna carry your home and take it to another country? You can't do that. It's an asset that sticks to a piece of land. But if you have insurance that covers the whole value of the home, then you're good. That's peace of mind. Hey, if the weather comes, I mean, you might lose a few things, but hey, you have an umbrella policy that covers those things as well. Just make sure that all your valuable assets are properly recorded on the insurance company's records. Because if you do have an umbrella policy, you want to make sure that it's actually like whatever you want to cover, like gold, jewelry, things like that. As you actually tell them about it and say how much it's worth, and that you want to protect it using your umbrella policy. And so, protection is very key. It's definitely better to be safe than to be sorry. And then be sure to consult, this is highly recommended, consult with an insurance professional to go over your coverage levels. They oftentimes do this for free because they are paid on a commission. You do want to watch out for those agents that always want you to sign up for more than you need. But at the same time, I would much rather err on that side, or I would much rather be on that side of the fence where I'm overcovered. Because if I'm undercovered, then I don't receive adequate compensation. If I'm overcovered, I might even receive more than what the car is worth, or just something like that. So I would much rather be overcovered than undercovered. So I would say it is a good idea to seek out an insurance professional. You know, one who's preferably a fiduciary, preferably somebody who has a vested interest in what you actually need and not just their paychecks. And then also try to securely store all your documents. So anything that's important, any financial documents or anything, any critical documents, you know, Social Security card, medical card. Medical card should always be in your wallet. You know, but Social Security card, your passport, birth certificate, marriage certificate, you know, maybe you have a will, a trust, anything like that. Please be sure to secure that. And a way to do this is to create a kit. You know, just a quick like bag where you go out and buy a bag. It's a document kit. Just like you have a first aid kit, you should have a financial document kit or a document kit in general. And so this kit has all your key documents in them in one nicely needed. It's very nicely and organized. The key to this is to be easily able to find these things. And it's in a nicely organized place along with an electronic copy. So let's say just in case this flood just wipes out everything you have. Well, at least you have an electronic copy that, let's say they need proof to get a new one. Or maybe you're in the process of applying for a mortgage or anything like that. You at least have that electronic copy just in case. Remember, it's always better to be safe than sorry. And so you want to keep an electronic copy on a secured, and I repeat the word secured, flash drive. One that's password protected. You know, you don't want to use a generic password like 12345. This is a password that you actually take serious, and it's very hard for somebody to gain access to it. And then this flash drive, be sure to keep it in a separate location than that physical storage unit. Because what's the purpose if you lose that physical and the flash drive is in there? You just defeated the purpose of having two separate, you know, vehicles. And then also try to put the kit in a fireproof or waterproof location. Maybe you have like a container, or you have something it's very hard. For one, water certainly can't damage it. Make sure it's properly sealed. And then two, fire can't damage it either. So try to have something like that where you know it's like pretty fireproof, pretty you know, pretty proof as far as disaster proof basically. And then you should always have a will. Unfortunately, some of these celebrities died without a will, such as Prince. But you should always have a will just in case, unfortunately, you pass away during a flood or during during an earthquake, during a disaster, a hurricane. Just in case you have that will in place, you have your necessary trust, you have your deeds and all of those things in place, so that if you do die, you know, your attorney or whoever your trustee is, essentially they can ensure that your assets are properly distributed and you don't leave your loved ones in financial distress. So not only did you go through financial distress, or did you go through a significant disaster and death, but you don't want to leave other people in the same position or similar position. And then the last thing is try to take preventative measures. So, I mean, these are very common sense, basic things. Ensure the stove is turned off every time you leave the house. You'll be surprised at how many people don't do something that simple. It's the simplest things in life that actually ends up hurting us the most. So ensure the stove is off, ensure water's not running, you're not over flooding things, your tub is not filled up, and then you leave the house for 2 hours to go talk to a friend, and now your whole house is flooded. You know, so these are more like common sense. You should just know these things type. And then also properly maintain your home to avoid certain catastrophes such as a flood. Now let's say your roof is essentially, your roof is not covered. For whatever reason, you have a hole in your roof because you didn't take care of it, you didn't replace it. and now rain always comes through your roof, that can cause a flood if there's a major rain. So just try to stay away from little things like that. These are easily preventable things. And always seek help when necessary. You know, never go it alone. If you need to call the police because you're stranded somewhere, call them. You need to call the ambulance, call them. If you see there's a fire somewhere in somebody's apartment that can potentially damage your apartment, or just, you know, just for the goodness of you, try to call a fire department. Just always keep your eyes open and never go it alone. You have support. You have all these things in place. And unfortunately, if the disaster does happen and it does wipe you out, you at least have your 6 months worth of reserves to actually recover yourself and have some assistance. So thank you all for tuning in to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some financial content. Thank you all for tuning in.
The community accountant, community abrantia papa, I don't know, Jeff Badu. Hey, night by night. What I don't fear who. What may come, coffee water, I don't fear who. Jeff, we are going to watch. Thank you very much for another segment of good education in the financial world. What's the hurricane in there are all kind of crime. There's a there was sort of your friends that tight, you know. 1/10, no, you bet me the beer because I yeah.
No.
Yeah, I be Jacopo seeing Shian and the niche. All right, so that was Voga there is an unpredictable talk show for the Ghanaian in the diaspora, connecting Ghanaians everywhere. It is the #1 Ghanaian talk show in the diaspora. I'm telling you, Obia Kabi be asked for counterfeits from China. Mama dollars in the car, yeah. Oh my. And yeah, all about just encouraging you, just teaching you, just showing you the ropes. We are kept by the power of the Most High God. Woo! The power of God.